I cannot give you a child, she wept. A native warrior turned away until fate restored love. Erendor rode alone, his horse's hooves muffled against the soft earth. Victory still warmed his chest, yet a strange emptiness gnawed at him. The battle had been brutal, his enemies had fallen, and his people celebrated his return. But the joy that should have filled him felt hollow. He thought of Liara. Her hair, black as night, had always framed a face full of quiet strength. Her eyes could calm a storm or set a man's blood on fire. And yet he remembered the fear in her gaze the last time they had spoken fear not of him, but of what they could never have. When Erendor reached the edge of their village, he dismounted. The village, once alive with laughter and the smells of cooking fires, seemed muted. The air carried a strange chill, as though the forest itself held its breath. He saw her then, standing alone by the riverbank, the moonlight casting a pale halo around her. Her hands trembled as she gazed into the water, and her lips moved in silence. Liara, he called softly, though his voice felt strange in the heavy night. She did not turn. He approached cautiously, feeling a weight settle on his shoulders. Liara, he repeated, his tone firmer this time. It is I, you know me. She lifted her head slowly, her eyes red from crying. For a moment, he saw the woman he loved, the one who had laughed beside him under summer skies and shared his dreams beneath the stars. But that look was tempered by sorrow, a sorrow deeper than any battlefield he had faced. I cannot give you a child, she whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the gentle ripple of the river. I wanted to, Erendor. I tried, but I cannot. The words fell like stones in his chest. He had imagined this moment countless times, yet never with such a finality. His mind raced. Honor, legacy, the expectations of his family and his people. A warrior's line must continue, a house must endure. And here he stood, staring at the woman he loved, who could not give him the future he believed he needed. I cannot, he said, though his heart protested. He wanted to reach for her, to comfort her, to say that love was more than blood and heirs. But a voice, old and cruel, whispered that he was wrong. Pride, duty, and fear chained his words. Liara's eyes filled with tears that glimmered in the moonlight. She looked at him, searching, pleading for something he could not give. Do you not love me enough to stay? Erendor's chest tightened. He did love her more than life, more than honor, more than himself. And yet he shook his head slowly. I cannot do this. I cannot stay knowing there is nothing to leave behind, nothing to carry my name forward. Her knees buckled beneath her, and she sank to the ground, cradling herself against the cold stones. Then go, she said, voice breaking. Go and be what you must. I will not hold you. He stood frozen, the words cutting deeper than any sword. For the first time in his life, Erendor felt powerless, not against an enemy, but against the human heart. He wanted to take her in his arms, to tell her that they could find another way, that love alone could build a future. But he did not. He turned away, each step heavier than the last. The forest seemed to close around him, the shadows whispering his shame. As he rode through the misted trees, memories of their love pressed against him, laughter beside the fire, quiet walks beneath the moon, stolen glances that said more than words ever could. And yet with each memory, he felt the cold truth. He had chosen the path of duty over desire, honor over the beating heart beside him. Liara remained by the river, her tears falling silently into the flowing water. She lifted her face to the moon, whispering a name into the night. Spirits of our ancestors, hear me, she murmured. I do not wish to be broken, but my heart is shattered. Help me find the path forward. The forest seemed to respond. A soft breeze stirred the mist, carrying the faint scent of flowers that had long since vanished from the earth. Shadows shifted in the corners of her vision, and for a moment she thought she saw a glowing figure rise from the river, its form delicate and shimmering. It vanished before she could call out, leaving behind a feeling of warmth and hope. Erendor rode for hours, but sleep would not claim him. He stopped at the edge of a cliff overlooking the valley, staring at the distant fires of villages he had once protected. The wind tugged at his cloak, and the moonlight painted his face with sorrow. The weight of his choice pressed on him, and for the first time he questioned everything he had believed about honor and legacy. Meanwhile, Liara wandered through the forest, guided by the faint glow that had appeared in the river. It seemed to whisper to her, urging her forward. She moved with purpose, her grief tempered by a strange determination. She did not know what awaited her, but she felt that the spirits had heard her plea. That, somehow, the world was not done with her, nor with Erendor. Night deepened, and the forest grew alive with the sounds of hidden creatures. Owls called from distant branches, and the wind carried whispers that seemed almost human. Liara paused, sensing a presence just beyond sight. Fear prickled her skin, yet it was not fear of harm. It was awe. Something ancient and patient watched her, as if the world itself had taken notice of her sorrow. Erendor, miles away, shivered in the cold night air. Memories of Liara filled his mind like a relentless tide. He could hear her voice in the wind, feel her presence in the shadows, yet when he reached out she was not there. His heart ached, and he realized too late that love had no need for heirs. It required only courage, only devotion. But the lesson came with a cruel irony. Courage was not enough to undo the choices already made. The night stretched endlessly, and the river whispered secrets that only the grieving could understand. Liara knelt once more, hands pressed to the earth, speaking softly to the spirits that had always guided their people. "Help him see," she begged. "Help him remember that love is not measured by what we leave behind, but by what we give to each other." In that moment, the glowing figure appeared again, brighter this time, casting silver light over the river bank. Liara reached toward it, but it faded like mist in the morning sun. Yet the warmth it left behind lingered in her chest. She knew that their story was not over. Fate had only paused, waiting for courage and forgiveness to take their turn. Erendor, too, felt a strange stirring, a pull toward the river, toward the woman he had left. The forest around him seemed to sigh, as though aware of the hearts torn by pride and fear. He did not know it yet, but the night had set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything he believed, force him to confront his deepest flaws, and perhaps, in time, bring him back to Liara. The moon hung high, bathing the forest in silver light. Two hearts, separated by sorrow and choice, were nonetheless connected by invisible threads of longing. The winds whispered their story to the trees, and the river carried their pain downstream, where ancient spirits listened and waited. And somewhere just beyond sight, fate began to weave its intricate design, preparing to restore a love that had been broken, not by betrayal, but by fear, pride, and the cruel expectations of men. The night stretched on, heavy with secrets, and the forest held its breath, waiting for the moment when two hearts, bound by memory and hope, would find the courage to reunite. The forest seemed alive with secrets that night. Mist curled around gnarled roots, and the moonlight touched the leaves like silver lace. Liara moved slowly along the riverbank, her feet careful not to disturb the soft earth. Her heart ached with the absence of Erendor, and yet a strange energy drew her forward, a quiet insistence in the night air. When she reached the place where the glowing figure had appeared before, it was waiting. Its form shimmered faintly, like a spirit caught between the world of the living and the world beyond. Liara's breath caught. She had thought it a dream, a flicker of hope born of grief. But now it stood before her, real and patient, watching her with eyes that seemed older than time. "You have called, child of the river," the figure said, its voice soft yet echoing as if carried by the wind itself. "Why do you mourn so deeply?" Liara sank to her knees, tears glimmering on her cheeks. "I have lost him," she whispered. "Erendor, he left me. I could not give him what he wished, a child, a future. And yet my love for him burns still. I cannot live without him, but I do not know how to call him back." The figure's light pulsed, bathing the trees in silver. "Love that is true cannot be destroyed," it said. But you have called it into a world that will test it. I will grant you a gift, though it is not without burden." Liara's heart trembled. A gift. Anything to bring him back, to remind him of me. The figure's form shimmered and seemed to stretch toward her, fingers of light brushing her hair. "You will feel him as he feels you. Your longing will be shared, and he will know your absence as keenly as your presence. Yet you will not be together, not until hearts are willing to face the truth of their choices. This is the path of redemption, child. Endure it, and the bonds of love may be restored." Liara's chest tightened and she shivered. "It will hurt," she whispered. "It will," said the figure, "but sometimes pain leads to clarity." And with that it dissolved into the mist, leaving behind only a faint glow in the river's ripples. Miles away, Erendor trudged along a narrow path, the weight of his armor pressing down on him in more ways than one. The forests of foreign lands were strange, darker, and colder than his home. He had sought distraction in travel, believing that distance would erase the ache in his chest. But it did not. Each step brought memories of Liara, her voice, her laughter, the sorrow he had caused. He paused by a quiet glade, the moonlight streaming down through the trees. There was a strange sense in the air, as though the forest itself was alive with invisible threads tugging at his soul. And then he heard it, a whisper. Soft, almost imperceptible, carrying her name. Liara. Erendor's heart seized. He spun around, sword half drawn, but the forest was empty. "Liara," he called, voice trembling. Silence answered him, heavy and suffocating. Yet the sensation remained, a warmth in his chest, a shadow brushing against his thoughts, a presence that was not there. Night after night, the whispers continued. He dreamt of her, but not in the way of peaceful sleep. He felt her sorrow as his own, each tear she shed cutting into him, each pang of longing a blade across his chest. In the light of day, he wandered, unable to find her, driven by a force he could not understand. Meanwhile, Liara remained in the forest near her village, learning to endure her own grief. Her sorrow was sharp, but she discovered that she could call upon the ancient energies that surrounded her. Birds would circle her path as if guiding her, and deer would approach without fear. She felt the heartbeat of the forest and the river, and through it all, a single thread connected her to Erendor. She learned slowly that the thread brought pain as well as guidance. When he was safe, she felt peace. When danger threatened him, her heart raced with terror. She did not know why the world had linked them in this strange way, but she trusted the spirits who had answered her call. Time passed in a rhythm of longing and sorrow. Erendor's quest for distraction became a quest for understanding. He spoke to strangers, learned the ways of distant lands, yet everywhere he went, shadows whispered her name, stirring memories he had tried to bury. One evening, in a village at the edge of a snow-covered forest, an elder noticed the haunted look in his eyes. "You carry a heavy heart," the elder said, "and not from battle. You have lost someone, but it is not their absence alone that torments you. There is a bond that has not been mended." Erendor frowned, anger and shame twisting together. "I have done what I must," he said. I cannot undo what I have done." The elder's eyes held a quiet wisdom. "The heart does not break easily, but it can be healed if one dares to face it. Pain is a teacher, and longing is the path it carves. You will find her again, not by fleeing, but by seeking the truth of your own soul." Erendor left the village before sunrise, the words echoing in his mind. He did not yet understand them fully, but a new determination had begun to stir. Perhaps the journey he had taken for pride and fear was instead the journey toward something greater, a way to redeem his heart and reclaim the love he had abandoned. Back in the forest, Liara felt a shift. The glow in the river grew stronger, pulsing in rhythm with her own heartbeat. She knelt by the water, murmuring words of gratitude to the spirits who had guided her. And then she felt it, a presence stronger than before. Erendor was near, though she could not see him. His thoughts brushed against hers like a wind through the trees, carrying a mixture of regret, longing, and hope. She whispered, "I feel you, Erendor. You are close, though the world keeps us apart. I will wait, and I will endure if only to see your face again." Days later, Erendor stood at the edge of a misted glade. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and pine. He felt her presence more clearly now, as if the forest itself had drawn him near. He spoke softly, half in disbelief. "Liara, are you here?" The mist shimmered, and he thought he saw her outline for a brief moment, but before he could step forward, it vanished. Frustration and longing twisted together inside him. Why does fate toy with us?" he muttered. The forest seemed to answer in silence, yet his heart felt a warmth that was both comforting and tormenting. He realized that this unseen connection was no accident. Something greater than the world had linked them, a force that demanded patience, endurance, and courage. As the days turned to weeks, both Liara and Erendor grew stronger in their own ways. Liara learned to draw strength from the forest, from the river, and from the spirits who had touched her life. Erendor learned humility and reflection, recognizing the errors of pride and fear that had driven him away. Their love was tempered by longing, sharpened by absence, and strengthened by invisible threads of connection that neither could sever. Yet the curse remained, the bond of longing that allowed them to feel each other's pain but not to reach one another. It was both a punishment and a gift. Pain reminded them of what they had lost. Connection reminded them of what was worth fighting for. One night under a sky heavy with stars, Liara knelt by the river once more. She reached into the water, letting her fingers trail along the surface. The faint glow appeared again, and a soft voice whispered, "Soon, the path will open and hearts will be tested. Only then will the bond be restored." Tears filled her eyes, not from sorrow, but from hope. The journey ahead would be long and full of trials. Erendor would face dangers she could not see, and she would face challenges that would test her courage and wisdom. But fate had begun its work. The curse of longing was not cruelty, it was preparation. And somewhere beyond the veil of night and mist, Erendor felt the same pull. He did not yet know where the path would lead, but he understood one thing clearly: he could not turn away again. The threads of love, woven by forces beyond human control, were calling him back to Liara. The mountains rose like jagged teeth against the sky, their peaks hidden in clouds that swirled like restless spirits. Erendor walked along the narrow paths, his cloak pulled tight against the wind. Each step was a test of endurance, each gust of cold a reminder of the choices he had made. Yet he felt a strange comfort in the struggle, as if the mountains themselves were preparing him for something greater. He had left the distant villages behind, driven by the invisible threads that bound him to Liara. At night her presence was almost tangible, a whisper in the wind, a shadow passing across the moonlit snow, a warmth in his chest he could neither explain nor resist. The curse of longing had become both a burden and a guide. It forced him to confront his own pride, his own fear, and the mistakes that had led him away from the woman he loved. One evening, Erendor came upon a frozen river that split the mountain path. The ice shimmered in the pale light, reflecting the moon in fractured, trembling pieces. He paused, sensing the presence of something unusual. From the mist above the river, a figure emerged, taller than a man, cloaked in frost and shadow. Its eyes glimmered like stars trapped in ice. "You have come far, Erendor of the noble line," the figure said, voice like the crack of frozen branches. "But to reach the heart of what you seek, you must face your own soul. Only then will you find her again." Erendor lowered his gaze. "I know I have failed her," he admitted, his voice tight. "I turned away when I should have stayed. I left out of fear and pride. I do not know if she can forgive me." The figure stepped closer, the wind howling around it. "Forgiveness is earned, not given. You will face 3 trials: strength, wisdom, and courage. Only when you have proven yourself on all 3 paths will the bond between you be restored." Erendor swallowed, his chest heavy with the weight of responsibility. "I will face them," he said, "no matter the cost." The first trial tested his strength. He climbed the sheer cliffs of the mountains, scaling jagged rocks slick with ice. Storms struck without warning, and the cold gnawed at his skin. At times he nearly fell, but he remembered Liara, her grief, her courage, her unwavering spirit. That memory pushed him upward, hand over hand, until he reached the summit. At the top, the shadowed figure awaited. "You have endured the storm and the weight of your own body. Strength is not only the power to fight, but the power to endure. You have passed the first trial." Erendor bowed his head, his muscles aching but his spirit lighter. He felt a faint glow around him, a reminder that Liara's presence was near, though still unreachable. The second trial tested his wisdom. He entered a labyrinth hidden within the mountains, its walls made of crystal that reflected his face from every angle. The path twisted endlessly, and illusions of fear and doubt pressed against him. At each turn he faced visions: Liara crying beside the river, him walking away, enemies from his past demanding vengeance, shadows whispering that he was unworthy of love. Erendor stumbled at first, nearly giving in to despair. But then he remembered the elder's words: "Pain is a teacher, and longing is the path it carves." He forced himself to pause, to breathe, and to observe the reflections not as threats but as lessons. He understood that his fear had been stronger than his love, that pride had blinded him, and that only humility could guide him forward. With each step of clarity, the labyrinth seemed to shift, opening new paths that led him deeper, closer to the truth. At the center, a pool of still water awaited, reflecting Liara's face perfectly. He knelt and spoke, voice steady but full of longing. "I see now. I was wrong to leave. I was blind to what matters most. My heart has been yours always." The water shimmered and the figure's voice echoed. "Wisdom is the recognition of one's own flaws and the courage to change. You have passed the second trial." Erendor felt a warmth in his chest, stronger than before. The threads that connected him to Liara pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat across the mountains. He was closer, yet still not whole. The third trial tested his courage. He descended into a forest shrouded in darkness, where shadows moved as if alive. The air was heavy, filled with whispers of doubt and fear. Every step forward required him to face memories he had tried to bury: the look of sorrow in Liara's eyes, his own selfish pride, the consequences of turning away. Suddenly the shadows coalesced into forms, illusions of warriors, spirits, and even himself. They advanced silently, testing his resolve. Erendor drew his sword, though he knew that strength alone would not suffice. He spoke aloud, declaring his truth: "I have failed, but I am not the same man. I will not turn away again. I face my fears, my pride, and my shame. I will endure for her, for us." The shadows hesitated, then dispersed, leaving only the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the trees. The figure appeared once more, smiling faintly. "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it. You have passed the final trial. You have proven your heart and your devotion." Erendor fell to his knees, exhaustion and relief flooding him. For the first time in weeks, he felt that he could breathe. The bond that had pulled at him, that had driven him across lands and through storms, pulsed brighter now, guiding him toward Liara. Far away, Liara sensed a shift as well. The threads that connected them vibrated strongly, tugging at her heart. She knelt by the river, her hands brushing the water's surface. "Erendor," she whispered, "I feel you. The path is opening. Be strong, be brave. Come back to me." A gentle wind lifted her hair, carrying her words across the mountains. Somewhere in the cold night, Erendor heard her voice, faint yet unmistakable. It strengthened his resolve. He pushed onward, climbing down from the forested mountains toward the valley below, where he felt her presence most keenly. The journey was not over. The world itself seemed to test them, with treacherous rivers, jagged cliffs, and strange spirits that whispered both warnings and encouragement. Yet every challenge reminded Erendor of his purpose, and reminded Liara of hers. The curse of longing, which had been both pain and guidance, now felt like a bridge, a way for them to grow stronger apart before reunion. Erendor paused one evening on a hill overlooking the valley of the river. Below, the forest stretched like a dark ocean. He felt her presence clearly now, stronger than ever. He spoke aloud, though the wind carried his words away. "I will not fail again. I will find you, Liara. Whatever trials remain, I will endure them." At the same time, Liara knelt by the river, tracing patterns in the water with her fingers. "I know," she whispered. "I will wait and I will prepare. The spirits guide us, and soon the path will bring us together." As the night deepened, both of them felt the threads connecting their hearts grow taut. It was as if fate itself held its breath, waiting for the moment when two souls, tempered by pain, humility, and courage, could meet again. The trials had changed them, reshaped their hearts, and strengthened their spirits. They were no longer the same people who had stood beside the river months ago. Erendor had learned patience, humility, and the true meaning of love. Liara had learned resilience, self-trust, and the power to endure sorrow without losing hope. And though they were still apart, the unseen bond between them pulsed with life, ready to guide them toward reunion. The sacred grove lay hidden deep within the forest, where sunlight barely touched the ground and mist curled around the roots like silver ribbons. Ancient trees, twisted and gnarled, formed a natural cathedral, and the air hummed with quiet power. Liara had been drawn here by the glowing threads that bound her heart to Erendor's. She knelt by a pool of still water, her reflection shimmering alongside the faint shimmer of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. She had endured months of longing, strengthened by her grief and guided by the spirits. Each day had tested her patience and courage, yet she had grown in ways she had never imagined. Her love for Erendor was no longer a fragile yearning. It had become a force that gave her clarity and strength. "I am ready," she whispered to the river, to the spirits, and to the unseen threads that connected her to him. "I am ready for whatever must come, for the path fate has chosen." Erendor climbed through the forest, the last stretch of his long journey leading him toward the grove. His body was tired, his mind weighed by months of trials, but his heart was steady. Each step brought him closer to Liara, to the woman whose love had endured even when he had faltered. The threads that bound them pulsed like a living thing, guiding him, urging him forward. He reached the edge of the grove as twilight descended, casting long shadows over the moss-covered ground. In the distance, he saw her, Liara, kneeling beside the water. Her hair gleamed in the fading light, and her posture held a quiet strength that made his heart ache with longing and admiration. "Liara," he called, voice trembling, carrying both hope and fear. "I have come." She turned slowly, eyes meeting his. For a moment the world fell silent. No wind stirred the leaves, no birds called from the trees, and the mist seemed to hold its breath. Erendor took a step forward, then another, until he stood before her, his heart beating so loudly he feared she would hear it. "You came," she whispered, a smile breaking through the tears in her eyes. "I felt you coming." He knelt before her, his hands trembling as they reached for hers. "Liara, I have failed you. I turned away when I should have stayed. I let fear and pride guide me instead of love. But now I know I will not leave you again." Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining as if they had been made to fit together. "I waited," she said softly, "because I knew you would return, and because I knew that love, true love, is not bound by time or trials. It endures." But the forest did not release its hold so easily. From the shadows emerged the glowing figure, the guardian spirit who had first bestowed the threads of longing upon them. Its light pulsed gently, casting a silver glow over the grove. "You have endured long, child of the river, warrior of the mountains," the spirit said, its voice echoing like distant thunder. "You have proven your hearts, your courage, your wisdom, and your strength. Yet there remains one final challenge." Erendor and Liara exchanged a glance. Neither spoke, but they understood. This was not a test of skill or strength, but of their hearts. The spirit raised its hands, and the mist around them thickened. Suddenly, they were surrounded by visions, moments from their past, choices they had made, fears and regrets laid bare. Erendor saw himself walking away from Liara, her tears falling silently. Liara saw Erendor turning his back, haunted by duty and pride. The visions pressed upon them, demanding that they face the pain they had caused each other. Erendor's voice broke the silence. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I see now what I lost. I see my mistakes. I am ready to make amends, to give you the love you deserve." Liara's hand touched his cheek. "I forgive you," she said, her voice steady despite the tears. "I forgive because I know your heart, and because love is stronger than fear, stronger than pride, stronger than all that keeps us apart." The spirit's glow intensified. "Then your hearts are ready. Love that endures suffering, that forgives, that grows stronger in the face of trials. This is the love that can overcome fate itself." The mist lifted, revealing the grove bathed in golden twilight. The pool of water shimmered, reflecting both of their faces. Erendor knelt once more, taking both of Liara's hands in his. "Liara, I swear to you, no force in this world or beyond it will make me leave again. I am yours now and always." She smiled, her eyes shining with a light that matched the fading sun. "And I am yours, always." A gentle wind swept through the grove, carrying with it the scent of flowers and the whispers of the spirits. The threads that had connected them, that had caused longing and pain, now wove together into a single, unbreakable bond. Their hearts beat as one, and for the first time since the night Erendor had left, the ache in both their souls was replaced with peace. They stood together beside the pool, hands clasped, and for a long moment neither spoke. The forest around them seemed to exhale, the mist curling upward and dissipating into the golden sky. Birds called in the distance, and the first stars of night began to appear. "I never thought we could come back from the things we endured," Erendor said softly. "But love was always our guide." Liara nodded, resting her head against his chest. "We were tested by fate, by pride, by fear, but our hearts endured. That is the power of true love." The days that followed were gentle and filled with quiet joy. Erendor and Liara explored the forest together, discovering hidden groves, ancient trees, and secret pools. They spoke of the past, of mistakes and regrets, but also of hope and dreams for the future. Each step was a reminder of the trials they had overcome and the strength they had gained. The villagers, who had once whispered of loss and tragedy, now saw the couple together, their bond unbroken. Erendor's strength and wisdom were no longer measured by victories in battle, but by his courage to confront his own heart. Liara's resilience and power were celebrated, not feared, as she became a guiding presence for those who had known sorrow and longing. The threads of longing, once a curse, had become a symbol of love's endurance. They had taught patience, courage, and humility, and now the couple walked forward not as broken souls, but as hearts strengthened by trials. Yet, even as peace settled over the grove, there was a quiet reminder that life was never without challenges. The spirits had whispered that fate would continue to test love in many forms, and that strength of heart would always be required. But Erendor and Liara had learned that trials were not to break them, but to shape them. Together, they could face whatever the world or destiny placed before them. Erendor gazed into Liara's eyes, seeing both the reflection of his own soul and the promise of the future. "Whatever comes," he said, "we face it together." Liara smiled, her hand finding his. "Together," she echoed, and for the first time in months neither fear nor longing clouded her heart. Only love remained, steady, unwavering, and eternal. The grove, once a place of shadows and trials, now glowed with life and promise. The river's waters shimmered with silver light, and the ancient trees seemed to lean closer, blessing the union of two hearts that had been tested by time, distance, and destiny itself. Erendor and Liara stood hand in hand, gazing at the river as the sun dipped below the horizon. The threads that had once caused pain now wove a tapestry of connection, resilience, and hope. Their journey had been long and filled with trials, but the love that endured had proven stronger than any force in the world. And as the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, the forest whispered its blessing, carrying the story of two hearts reunited, a story of redemption, courage, and the eternal power of love.